Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show, Week 5 edition. We'll recap Week 4, get Week 5 rolling for you. I'm Mike Daggs. This is Gerald Smith in rare form tonight. It's just, boy, oh boy, he's just in some sort of mood. So, hi, Gerald. How's it going?
If only they can get a behind-the-scenes look as for the prep that goes into this.
Nobody wants to see you behind the scenes of this show or anything that we're part of, quite frankly.
Sometimes
the stats guys see a little bit of behind the scenes on our broadcasts, and they come away feeling different. We'll just leave it at that.
Life-changing.
Anyway, it's a life-changing experience to see the behind the scenes, and that's not a good thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and recap Week 4. We'll get into the Week 5 schedule, break down some games, make some picks, and get into Week 5. But first off, we'll recap Week 4. Started off last Friday night. Had a pair of games last Friday. Nice treat instead of the usual just one game, everybody being forced to just watch you and I. They had a choice.
They should be forced to watch us every Friday night.
It's an iconic experience, if I must say so myself. But last week, a couple of games. We had Atlanta at Motor City. It was actually a very good game, real close right down to the end. Atlanta got the win 24-21. We had another shutout last week. This one was actually a little bit surprising. We know Florida's a good team, but shutting out Charleston in Charleston 16-0. Not a high-scoring game for Florida, but still shutting out Charleston, who's proved to be a really good team.
Yeah, and shutting out any team in the league is impressive all in itself.
We had another good game, Mexico City at Arizona. Everyone's expecting some offensive fireworks, and neither of our teams could manage to score a single touchdown on offense. Touchdown scored all game. A TJ Punk kick return for a touchdown that started things off. Yeah, and it's like, oh, here we go. And then the rest of it was, just a little bit of a field goal festival. So Albuquerque at Baltimore, it was a crazy game. We had scoring and turnover extravaganza. Baltimore got that win 51-34, putting up some major points, buku points, some would say.
Buku.
And then the game we called the has got to go, Pittsburgh and Chicago. Ultimately, Pittsburgh showed they know how to win some football games.
It was a beat down,
Yeah,
and I think it showed a lot of what Chicago is.
Yeah,
which we'll discuss that a little bit later.
We will. Yeah, Pittsburgh handled Chicago really with relative ease, 38-10 in a game that they looked really good. And we had DC at Canton on Monday night. Is Canton unstoppable? I mean, that was the question all last season long. And even though Canton got the win, I would say no, they're not unstoppable. DC had the lead in the fourth quarter, and Canton won, but barely. So it was an interesting game.
Yeah, look, and I think the competition is starting to kind of come together. You're starting to see what teams are good, what teams are not so good, right? And what teams are still struggling. So it's the cream is starting to separate itself and rise to the top, even though this is only Week 5.
Yeah. That will be at the halfway point before you know it. Let's get into the Week 5 schedule. We've got another pair of games tonight. On Friday, starting at 8 p.m., we've got Canton at Chicago. That one should be interesting. Obviously, Canton, a powerhouse. Chicago hasn't done so good so far this season. We'll break that game down a little bit. That'll be the game you and I call here at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Chicago's at home. Hopefully, for their sake, they got something going for them in that home field advantage. Also tonight, Houston at Carolina. Cameron Duty and Anthony Ellison back in the booth together. And sure to be a great call. So if you're sick of us yet, tune into Cameron and Anthony.
You'll never get sick of us.
How could you? Gosh, it's
appetizing treat. We're appetizing treat.
That's your Friday slate, as disturbing as that might now sound. On Saturday, there's only 2 games this week, so be sure to tune into them both. 9 p.m. Fort Worth at Albuquerque. Chris Curtis, Mark Lopez on the call. We'll break that game down in a little bit. 9:15 p.m. Denver at Charleston. Colin and Rick Northrup on the call. Denver, a team that's been up and down a little bit this season, and Charleston just coming off being shut out. So good luck, Denver. I'm sure Charleston's going to be looking to get a little bit of a rebound this week.
Yeah, and Denver was one of those teams that I do believe got actually shut out. So 2 teams that have gotten shut out this season get to play one another.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens. It may 0-0 into quadruple overtime, and eventually we just say, you know what? No one wins. No one can score. No one wins. We're done. That's your Saturday slate. On Sunday, starts off at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time with Nashville at Florida with Jacob Clear. Mickey Malillo, double M7 himself, back in the booth finally. And at 6:45, Los Angeles at Lexington with Eric Vincent, Petey Zeller on the call. Another good one. 9 p.m., Indianapolis at Motor City with Ethan Muslin and Ramos Lynn on the call together. Ramos back in the analyst role this week against his will. He likes doing play-by-play. I said, no, you'll do what I say. So, that's how we do things on the broadcast team. Not that you don't show up to the meetings.
That's true. It was worthy of skipping from what I hear.
Unbelievable. The disrespect. 9:15 p.m. We've got Arizona at Queen City with Tyler Falk and Alex West, which is sure to be another great call from those two. That is our Sunday slate. On Monday, we have a special tribute night. It is the 12th, and when the 12th falls on a Monday, we throw tribute to number 12 himself, Matt Willson, as well as our other fallen colleagues and friends from the Simulation Football League. So we'll have a special Monday night doubleheader starting at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Atlanta at Mexico City. We're going to be wearing our Santa Fe throwbacks. I always love Santa Fe throwback night. The uniforms look great. The stadium looks great. It's why Matt Willson picked to play on that team, because he was a fan of the Syracuse Orange, and the uniforms greatly resemble the Syracuse Orange. My favorite night of the entire season coming up on Monday night. And that'll be followed up at 9:30 p.m. with Vancouver at Louisiana. And all four of those teams were picked specifically for this tribute night because all four of those teams, including your Louisiana Revolution, have experienced a loss. Why don't you just take a couple seconds to talk about Leonard
and we'll be wearing our Cadillac Blacks, our uniforms, which is in tribute to Leonard Butler Sr., who his whole thing was we're gonna do it Cadillac style, right? Baby. So he was. I'm not gonna like our team has never been the same since he passed away. He was the heartbeat of our team, and look, and he is. Like, I watched Ashley Jackson old interviews she had. It nearly brought me to tears hearing him talk and everything else about how he likes the league and how he gets involved. So it's good stuff to him. We'll have a stadium transformation as well when we had a tribute to him.
It's great.
Last year for the anniversary of his passing. So yeah, so it's good stuff. He's still missed. His team has never been the same since he's left us, but he's always with us in his heart. That's why we wear the 68 patch on the jersey, much like you guys do as well in Mexico City. So
that patch will be there for all of time. Absolutely. So it's going to be an emotional night, but it'll be a great night. I'm guaranteed to cry. Hopefully nobody asked me to be on camera for that. Next, we'll go on into our games now. Let's get out of that. Let's break down some football games and have some fun before I cry right now. Let's talk about Nashville at Florida, the game that's going on 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. It's an East Division battle. Finally, we're starting to get into some of these divisional rivalries. There's been some throughout the first couple of weeks, but we really haven't broken down a division rivalry yet. We've got the number 1 team in the East, Florida, versus, surprisingly, maybe the number 2 team in the East right now with Nashville. They started off with a really impressive win over the DC Dragons. A game I think everybody probably picked DC to win against the rookie, franchise. But Nashville got that win. They followed that up with a solid victory over Los Angeles in week 3. But then they lost what I'm calling a field goal contest with Indianapolis last week, 9-6, a rousing 9-6 battle. Who am I to talk? I couldn't score a touchdown last week either. Neither could Arizona.
There's 2 weeks this season. We could score a touchdown.
What are you going to do? That's how Nashville started. Florida, they haven't lost since week 13 of last season. Sound familiar to everything we said about Florida last season? They hadn't lost since, I think, week 11 or 12 of that season. So they barely lose. They've won about 8,000 straight games, not counting that one. All of their games this season, they're 3-0. They've had 2-score victories in all of them. Both defenses have looked real solid this season. Florida, they allow the least points in the league. Nashville's right up there, top 5. I'm sure you'll talk about that. The offenses, though, neither one's really been fantastic. They both have had some trouble scoring. They're both in the bottom half of the league in points scored. We'll start with the Nashville offense, and you can get into breaking them down.
And they lost their first game of the season last week in a defensive battle, as you just mentioned. Look, their offense has not been great through 3 games, but somehow they sit at 2-1. And look, and in their wins, they have limited the turnovers, right? They've only had 2 turnovers in the games that they have won total. So, but in their lone loss, they turned the ball over 4 times last week. All of them were interceptions. Their run game has been non-existent and is among the league's worst. 66 yards a game they average, which is also for their running backs 2.4 yards a carry.
That's just
that running game is just bad. They have not reached 300 yards of total offense in any single game this season. For me, that's concerning if I'm them, because if I can't get over 300 yards total offense, that tells me we're not moving the ball.
Right.
So the offense ranks second to last in total offense because why? They just can't move the ball. But again, they sit at 2-1. Look, and the question is, like, how are they doing it?
Right. Yeah. How are they doing it? And I guess I kind of teased that a little bit in my intro of this game. Their defense is what's getting it done for them.
Yeah, and their defense unit, they are second best in the SFL in takeaways and fifth in points allowed, only allowing 13 points a game. But they give up a ton of yards. They rank 22nd in yards allowed and 24th in rush defense. They have been the definition of a bend but don't break defense. Why? Because they are giving up a ton of yards. Yeah. But guess what? They are only allowing 13 points, and that's to them because they know how to take the ball away.
And they're forcing a lot of punts, too.
Yeah, and this is I think it's a crazy stat.
It is.
They only allow 20% conversions on third down to their opponents.
Yep.
And if you think about it, it makes you wonder, how are they giving up that much yards on defense if they're not giving up too many third downs? So a lot of the damage by the opponents apparently being done on first and second down on them.
Absolutely. So Florida, talk about how are they all getting it done. How is Florida so consistent? I mean, they're doing the same thing that they've did for the last couple of seasons. They are undefeated at this point in the season. Granted, it's only week 5, but listen, let me tease my pick a little bit here. I expect them to be undefeated for a little bit longer.
And
talk about that offense.
Yeah, same here. Look, and the offense, like you mentioned, isn't scoring a ton of points, but they always seem to score when it is needed, right, for them, right? Yeah. And they're scoring enough. They are number 3 in total offense, top 10 in all the other offensive categories, and they know how to protect the ball. They only have 3 turnovers this season, and which is best in the SFL. To me, they are the top team in the league unless somebody comes in and dethrones them and takes it from them.
Yeah, the turnovers, I think, are key. I mean, the consistency that Ron Cochran shows on a weekly basis is really what helps Florida, I think, stay up at the top of that game. The defense, though, and again, tease this a little bit, too. If you think their offense is good, how about that defense? Their defense is even better.
And they are way better, right? They only allow 8 points a game, number 1 in the league to their opponents, right? 8 points a game. You only allow that's almost just a touchdown a game. Right. You're allowing. Teams have struggled to run the ball against this defense, who is number 2 versus the run. I've said it in last season for a long time. Their DBs play the line of scrimmage and cover the run like no other team does in the SFL.
Yeah.
They also have the number 5 total defense in the SFL. This unit right now is a huge reason why I think they are going to get themselves in a 3rd straight championship type run this season. Now, another thing of note, right? We have seen the inactive list. We've seen linebacker Ryan Tobin. He is going to be out this week. He's going to be inactive. I like it because that's some inside information you see in some of these other leagues and other shows. He's an inactive for this week. How badly will that affect this defense? Well, I guess we're going to find out on Sunday.
We will find out Sunday night. $1.99 super chat from Z-Bull with a whole bunch of Mexican flags, the green, the white, the red. Pretty flag. Ignore your flag. Hashtag 12MDW, hashtag 12. The D is his middle initial. Trivia contest. Does anybody know his middle name? We'll see how many people have actually watched the games I've called in the past, because I said it once and it became a big point of contention during that game because he got all mad that I revealed what the D stood for in his middle name. Z-Bull is Matt Wilson's mom, Carol. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat and the support you give us every single week on this show. I know she watches our show every single week, man.
That's good. Like we have fans and somebody who enjoys it because it is a show that is in tribute to her late son, our friend Matt Wilson. So it's good.
Let's get into some more games. Someone's gonna make me cry before this show is over. It's ridiculous. Stop it. 9 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday night. We've got Fort Worth at Albuquerque, our beloved division rival Fort Worth. I say beloved because I really mean, I just love Fort Worth so much. They head to Albuquerque to take on the Adams. I'm not really sure what to make of the Adams yet this season as a major league franchise. They looked lost against Atlanta in week 1, and then they followed that up by shutting out division rival Denver in week 2, and now they just allowed 51 points to Baltimore in week 4. Granted, they did put up 34 of their own, but you shut out a team, and then you're like, all right, you guys can score like a lot. Go ahead, it's okay.
They say you can drop a 50 burger on
Just
us.
drop
It's
a
cool.
50 burger on it. Yeah, what's the big deal? We want to average out our points allowed. Fort Worth, they had the week off, but they were 3-0 through week 3, of course. They also pitched a shutout this season, 45-0 over Carolina. They only beat Atlanta by 7 on the road in Atlanta in their week 3 game. They're going to need to put up some more points against Albuquerque. I think this offense can probably do it. They are top 5 in scoring. They are only number 2 in points allowed on defense. Albuquerque, it's going to be their toughest challenge of the season yet, even more so than Baltimore, I would say. So let's talk about Fort Worth's offense and how they're going to get it done.
And they've come out roaring out of the gates and have stampeded, in my opinion, the competition. Even though what they had against Atlanta, they didn't look very good, but they finished really strong.
They did.
And they sit at 3-0. They are known for their hot starts the last couple of seasons, and they continued that trend this season as well. They have done so on offense with quarterback play from Marcus Dunhill and his wide receiver core of Henry McGee, Paige Stevens, and the guy who just wears no gloves, just tape on the fingers, Stephen Hacker, which has them the number 2 scoring offense with 30 points a game. And they're doing it through the air because they haven't had, too much success in run a game with J.Z. Bacon just yet. But I do think they're actually going to get themselves to that point offensively. They're dangerous on offense.
Yeah, they're dangerous on defense too. If you take a look a couple seasons ago, that season 21 Toros defense was legit, and this season 23 defense really kind of seems, at least statistically, to be a mirror image of that season 21.
And they are the only team in the SFL defensive unit that is allowing less than 200 yards of offense to their opponents each game. They're also only allowing 25% on third down, which has them as the number 1 total defense in the league. Very tough to move the ball against this defense, which doesn't bode well for us when we got to face them this season. When you can't move the ball, you don't score points. That's how they have won these games.
Yeah.
Put their offense in really good situations and the position to succeed, and they've done that so far.
Well, Albuquerque's offense has shown that they can put up points. They put up 23 or more points in their last 2 games. They scored 34 in a losing effort last week. What can this offense do against Fort Worth?
They have leaned on quarterback Cyrus Jive to do so, right? To power the offense to the number 5 passing tag in the league, a top 10 total offense. But the mystery to me is running back Jason Williams, who has nearly 13,000 rush yards on his career, which is 7th all time. I don't think people who have been in the league short term understand how hard to even get that high. That's a ton of yards, right? He just has not been productive for the offense. Now
he's tired, man.
Right. So if they can get, or maybe he's getting old, I don't know. But look, if they can somehow get him going, I think they could be a dangerous offense to go with, that number 5 passing attack. Right. But until that point, I think it's still a mystery on how good this offense might be able to be.
The defense is a mystery too, because sometimes they shut out teams, sometimes they allow 51 points. Talk about that defense.
It's like all or nothing with them, right? It's like, hey, we're just going to give up no points at all. Then we're going to let somebody score a ton. In their losses, they have allowed no less than 31 points to their opponents. Look, but in their lone win, it had been a shutout.
Yep.
They surrendered 27 points a game, which is in the bottom half of the league. If they want to compete with the big boys in this league since coming up from the minors, which is a team like Fort Worth they will have to keep putting points on the board.
$5 super chat from Doug Day says, Dags, Twinkies on demand. It just doesn't work in our studio. I don't have anybody to launch Twinkies at me. Next convention, though, we'll definitely repeat the Twinkies shooter. On demand.
Twinkie shooter. Yeah. We got to talk about a squad later. I don't know if he might not want.
Yeah, please hold. We'll see when we get to that breakdown. One more before that one. Houston at Carolina. The game coming up at 8:15 p.m. tonight. You always pick what teams we're going to break down. You just love talking about our South Division rivals. Apparently, we have Fort Worth that we had to talk about. Now we got to talk about Houston too.
I want to pump them up so we can just tear them down
and dump on them later on game day. Fooled you. You thought you were good.
Maybe it's reverse psychology.
I think it is. Yeah, because they seem to take.
You're great, but you're really not.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Yeah, we are," and they
sounds like my team. I think I'm great, but really not.
Houston's at 2-1, and they just put on another impressive show against Denver last week, a 31-13 win. They did lose to Vancouver in week 2, 51-24, another 50 burger. So they're certainly not invincible. Carolina, what happened? A great defensive battle in week 1, right? When you picked Vancouver to win, and then they won by 2 scores in that game at the convention. But then they got shut out in week 2, 45-0. Next up, they played Los Angeles. They lost that one again, 24-10, giving Los Angeles his first win of the season. Their last in points scored. Even in their one win they had in week 1, 17 was the total that they scored, minus 49 net points between scored and allowed. Houston is for sure going to score some points tonight. Talk about that Houston offense and what they're going to do.
When Houston wins, right, it's through their run game. When their run game is firing on all cylinders, and their 2 wins, they have averaged over 200 rush yards, in each of those games. In their losses, 44 yards, right, that they have got, right? In the loss, they only averaged they only got 44 yards that game. They're among the league's best in third down, though, with 64% of third downs converted. And look, it all sounds really good, right? That sounds pretty good, except the quarterback play by O.G. Bruin has not been where you'd expect it, or at least I would expect it, right? When he is needed to produce, he really hasn't at all. He hasn't answered the call in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It was evident in week 2 when run game was slowed down. He could not produce and get them in a position to actually win that game. The passing offense has to catch up to the run game if they have any chance at all in a really, really tough South Division.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have Fort Worth at 3-0, then 3 teams at 2-1. You're at 1-2, but still, only a game. Listen, you're only a game out. Even at 1-2, you could still finish 10-2. So it's going to be a tough division. So let's talk about that defense. They haven't really come close to how they played last season when they were top 5.
Yeah, and this season they're in the bottom half of the league in all categories defensively. Not saying they're bad, but not where they should be given the talent they have on defense. Right? If they start clicking on defense like they did last season, because they have most of the same talent, they can be a force on defense to complement how good their offense is doing when they are clicking on all cylinders. So I don't have any worries for the defense. I just think they just got to get more of their feet under them as the season matures. I think you'll see this defense improve.
All right, well, let's talk about Carolina. I know it's the team that you just love to just crap all over. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Look, last season, I bashed their defense, and they decided to have me eat my words. It's just what it is. But this season, it's the offense that is terrible, not the defense. They are dead last in yards per game at 209 yards of offense a game. Last in pass yards. Second to last in points scored, which is 9 points a game. Matt South is last in the SFL in completion percentage. 39% of his passes are being completed. Last in QBR, has a 20.7 QBR, and sacked most in the league too. That's not helping him at all. Matt South on the season has 1 touchdown, 8 interceptions, and the offense is only 35% of third downs. Look, the run game has been solid, but they can't overcome the terrible passing performances that they've actually had so far this season. So they have a lot to improve upon in that passing game on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to clean that quarterback play up, or you're not going to have any success. The defense, they can point the finger at the offense is the reason that they're 1-2, but because that defense has actually produced.
Yeah, and they have produced. They got the number 4 defense in the SFL, but due to the tough position that they're put in all the time by their offense, they end up surrendering 25 points a game. It's hard to overcome if your offense is not helping your defense out in any way. Staying on the field longer and converting those third downs gives your defense a bit of rest for them to have, and they can produce at a really high level because we've actually seen it somewhat last season, and we actually seen it early on this season.
It's going to be a tough contest for Carolina tonight. Another tough contest tonight, Chicago hosting Canton. Canton, they actually looked mortal last week. DC gave them a run for their money like we talked about. Canton, of course, won, but not by much. They're still a great team, obviously. Number 2 in scoring behind Baltimore. They're top 10 in points allowed. They know what they do well, and they do a lot of that. And they're really not going to change. They're just going to keep doing what they do. Chicago is kind of another team where I say, what happened? They're in their 5th season in existence, right? And they've gotten progressively better ever since they started as a franchise in Seattle a few seasons ago. They've never been 0-4 in those 4 seasons in the past. In fact, they did, like I said, got progressively better. Their first season in season 19, they went 1-11. Then in season 20, they went 4-8. Season 21, they went 8-4. They made the playoffs. They had a playoff game.
Yeah.
They lost it. Slight regression, if you want to call it, in season 22, 7-5, but still made it to the playoffs. I'm jealous. Can I say? But they lost that playoff game. But now the best they can hope for, if all goes well, is 8-4. It's just kind of crazy. We talked about Carolina. Chicago's right there with them. 22nd in points scored, 24th in points allowed, minus 79 in net points. When you compare their points scored versus points allowed, and they're just absolutely getting hammered. And Canton's another team that can do it. Talk about Canton's offense.
And Canton's rush offense has picked up where it left off last season when they're number 1 rushing attack. And guess what they sit? They sit at the exact same spot after 4 weeks. Logan Lee, Robert Johnson, and Bill Cherry averaged 5 yards a carry combined and rushed for an average of over 200 yards a game. Yeah. They are very tough to contain. Now, my concern with this, you would think, hey, they're being dominant as they are, but I have concern. The concern for me is the pass game.
Right.
If the run game isn't there, can Scar Patterson get it done in the passing game? So far this season, he's completing 61% of his passes, which is 3rd best.
That
right?
sounds jealous.
Which most of those passes are going to a really good pass catcher and wide receiver, Al Dillapre Sr., who is top 8 in receptions and yards. Very good offense, but still, for me, I have question marks with the quarterback play just for what I don't know if he can carry the team like that run game can. So we'll see if somebody can slow down that rushing attack, if he can, propel his team to a win if that run game gets shut down.
I'll put a question mark on the defense. They just haven't looked quite as dominant as they did last season.
Look, but they still have a top 8 total defense. Yes. Their defense is 2nd best in taking the balls away, which is, forced, passes to be kind of thrown all over the place. And linebacker Kevin Brackett, who leads the SFL in sacks. Yep. And the team as a unit leads the entire league in sacks combined with 15 after 4 games. Canton defense presents a challenge for any offense. Not quite as good as last year, but they still present a big challenge.
They were number 1 in most categories across the board last season, both on offense and defense, looking a little bit more mortal this season around. So maybe Chicago can get it done. But Chicago, the last 2 seasons in Seattle, they did some winning. What's going on?
Yeah, look, I think Chicago left their winning ways in Seattle when packing.
Yeah.
When packing their their backpacks for the windiest city, and I suggest they go back
to Seattle,
get them right, because they just look entirely terrible on both sides of the ball. They can't run since they lost running back Baloo Scott to retirement.
Right.
Quarterback type attack looks nothing like he's done in any of his seasons in the league. 41% of his passes are completed this season, which is 2nd to last. He's got 8 interceptions to only 3 touchdowns. No running back. This is crazy. No running back on the roster has 100 yards yet through 4 games.
Right.
I'm not talking about a 100-yard rusher.
You're talking about
through
total.
4 games total right now. Nobody has 100 yards yet.
Yeah, you got to get that going.
And to think about this too, Canton has 1 running back that has nearly 7 times more yards than the entire Chicago backfield. If I'm looking at that, I'm like, that's embarrassing as an offense, right? To have that kind of production from your offense. They got to fix a ton of things on that offensive side.
Yeah, Doug Day is definitely never giving us Twinkies ever again.
Look, and then speaking of,
he just rescinded the super chat.
And speaking of Doug Day, he's on the defense. The defense cannot stop anything as of yet. They give up 2nd most yards to their opponents in the league. Look, and they haven't been able to put anything near together what they were able to do last season. They have to figure it out, and they have to do it fast. And it's a hard team to do it against Canton. Otherwise, this 1 loss, I think their season is done. They're sitting at home. If they lose this game here, because I really do think they're going to lose a lot more. If they lose this game here, I think they can just say that their season's done. They lose it 5 losses early in the season. I think you're done.
Now's the time to turn it around. Let's see what they can do here in just a minute, as the countdown is, I think, at 0. So let's go through our picks. we need like 3 more minutes added to that countdown, I think, on a weekly basis. But anyway, our picks. I'm currently at 9-5. You're at 11-3. Last week you picked whatever. Pittsburgh. I'm just gonna turn this way. I'm done with you. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Atlanta. This is my good side. I picked Chicago, Baltimore, and Atlanta. You obviously won an extra game there with the Pittsburgh pick. This week, let's get into our picks. Nashville at Florida. Who do you got?
I got Florida. I think Florida is going to win a bunch of games until somebody emerges as being somebody good. I don't think Nashville has it. Their offense isn't there. Florida takes it, and I think it's by at least 2 scores.
Florida almost never loses, and I can just leave it at that because I don't think Nashville has shown us quite yet what that they can top a team like Florida. Fort Worth visiting Albuquerque. Who do you got?
Albuquerque is a huge mystery to me. Fort Worth is not. They're really dominant. They win.
No, you said that perfectly. I mean, Albuquerque, they've had some games where they've looked great. But other games, they just downright look bad. Fort Worth has had games where they look great, and great again. I think they get this win as well, so I'll also go with Fort Worth. Our last pick of the night, Houston at Carolina.
I love Harish and my friends in Carolina, but I cannot
so many good
pick
people there.
you. Yeah, great. The best.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
The best amongst all teams, and mine included. I love my team, but they got the best people there. I love you guys, but I can't pick you. You guys not playing well. Houston wins it.
Houston is indeed, I think, going to win that game. Much to our dismay as South Division team owners, we just picked 2 of our division rivals to win. But what can you do? I mean, listen, we're making picks.
I want them to prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove us wrong. Come on, Carolina. Come on, Albuquerque. Let's go.
Do it.
Help us.
Yeah.
Even though, listen, Chicago don't want to help you at all, so it's a good thing. Hey, Chicago. Last time Gerald ripped the team, it was Carolina. And what did they do that game? They went out, they balled out, and they won.
They balled out.
So will Chicago do the same thing? Can they get the win over Canton? You're going to find out next. As Matt Willson would say, there's only one way to find out, and that's on the field. We will see you there, and stick around. Stay with us.